What if the biggest obstacle in your life is not about what you don't have, but the story you keep telling yourself about what is missing? This is the tricky thing about scarcity. It's not always loud. Sometimes it shows up quietly in the way that you compare yourself to others on social media, or in that little quiet knot in your stomach when you're wondering if you have enough or if you're doing enough. This is why this conversation matters, because when you recognize what scarcity is, you begin to loosen the grip and rewrite the story that you tell yourself. That story, that narrative that you keep telling yourself, shapes your belief of how you see the world and what you believe is possible for you. And if we don't shift our focus, it becomes the lens through which we see everything. Today, I want to talk about how we can shift that lens, how we can move from scarcity to abundance. Oftentimes, when people hear scarcity mindset, they often think about money, but it's so much more than that. Scarcity is the lens you look through. It's the constant belief that there's not enough. Not enough time, not enough opportunities, not enough space for you. And when you think from that place, it shapes how you think and how you make decisions without you even realizing it. Cicely Tyson's story is a powerful example of this and what it looks like to break out of it. She grew up in what she described as the slums of East Harlem. Her parents were immigrants from the Caribbean. Her father was a carpenter and painter. Her mother cleaned the houses. They struggled to make ends meet. They had a cramped apartment. Sometimes her father couldn't find work, so that was a struggle for them. And young Black girls finding work during that time, it was a struggle, especially in entertainment, because it was dominated by people who did not look like her. In that environment, it would have been easy to play it safe, to think small, to think I'm just going to get a job and just hold on to it for dear life. But instead, she was discovered by a photographer while she was working as a secretary. The photographer asked her if she would consider modeling. She could have said no. She could have said, people like me don't deserve these opportunities. But instead, she said yes. Even though she didn't know where it was going to lead, she said yes. And this was the decision that changed the direction of her life. It's exactly the same thing that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich. He describes faith as the foundation of achievement. Faith in that sense isn't about having the proof or seeing the proof. It's about believing in something, even if you don't see the proof of it yet. Even when the odds, the people around you, the environment are saying otherwise. Cicely Tyson didn't have certainty. She didn't have a safety net. She had just enough belief to step forward. Scarcity mindset says, I'll believe it when I see it. Faith mindset or abundance mindset says, I'll believe it and then I'll see it. And that is the mindset that starts to pull you out of scarcity thinking. Scarcity doesn't just affect your finances, it seeps into the way you see yourself and the choices that you make. It can shape your relationships, your confidence, and how you present yourself to the world. Growing up, we always wore old clothes whenever we were in the yard or just doing chores. But the moment we knew we were going somewhere, maybe it was to somebody's house or going to worship, we would clean up and then we would put on nicer clothes. Clothes was always nicely pressed by our mother, and we always had to put lotion on. We had lotion, usually Nivea or Vaseline. And I didn't think anything of it. That was just the way that it was. And later on, when looking back, when I thought about it, I realized that we were being taught to present ourselves to other people. Okay? We were being taught to present ourselves in a certain way, not necessarily for us first, but for them, for the outside world. We weren't being taught to put ourselves first. We were being taught to put our presentation first. And this is not to criticize my parents. My parents were doing the best that they could, what they were taught from their parents. You know, from one tradition to the next, they were teaching their children what they were taught from their parents. So, I get that part of it. But what it taught me later on and what I thought about was about self-care. That self-care wasn't being done for how I felt in my own skin. It was self-care for how other people perceived me. Years ago, my daughter taught me a lesson about this without even trying. She was working at an amusement park at the time, and they wore uniform. My daughter would always leave the house early so she can get to work on time. And so she would always wear her regular clothes when she left the house to go to work. And so one day I asked her, why don't you wear your uniform before you leave, when you leave the house? That way, when you get to work, you already have it on and you don't have to stop in the locker room to save time to have to, go to work. And so she said to me, I like to be me on my way to work. And so I'll change when I get there. And then after work, I'll change back into my regular clothes. So it hit me that she was doing something that I had never done at her age. She was separating her identity from her job. She was putting herself first and not letting the uniform define her. And she was doing it naturally without anyone teaching her. She was saying, I'm not my job. And so this showed me the gap between her generation and mine. I was conditioned to present myself for other people, and she already had the mindset to put herself first. What she was saying was, I'm me first, and everything else comes second. And even though changing clothes may look like a small thing, that's the biggest declaration that she was making about her self-worth. So her generation had the clearer lens, while mine was conditioned to filter things through how people would see me. Shifting from scarcity to enough doesn't happen in one giant leap. It happens in small daily choices. Think of it as a small pivot to retrain your brain to see abundance where you used to see lack. One of the simplest shifts you can make is to start your day with an enough practice. This could be as simple as writing down 3 things that you already have that you once dreamed about having. This might seem like something small, but what it does, it rewires your brain to think of what is present versus thinking of what is missing. Another shift is to set boundaries around your mental space. Scarcity loves chaos and distraction. Abundance grows in clarity. This means limiting the noise that you take in, whether it's social media or being around people that keep talking about what they don't have all the time. Protecting your mind is one of the fastest ways to create a feeling of enough. And finally, build in micro celebrations. Too often times we feel like we don't celebrate our small wins because we feel as though they're not big enough. But every time you acknowledge progress, no matter how small, you're telling your brain, I am already in motion and I am moving forward. Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, is a perfect example of using daily shifts to rewrite a scarcity story. She didn't start out with money, industry connection, or a background in fashion. She started with $5,000 and a belief that she could create something that women needed. She often talks about how she trained herself to focus on creative problem solving versus what she lacked. She carved out time every day to work on her idea, and she made a practice to reframe rejection as redirection. She celebrated every small steps, from finding a manufacturer who was willing to listen to placing her first order in a department store. Those daily shifts in her mindset, choosing possibility over lack, choosing action over fear, they set the foundation for what eventually became a billion-dollar brand. So let's recap what we've talked about today. Scarcity is more than money. It's a mindset. We saw how Cicely Tyson rose above her early environments, and how faith, as Napoleon Hill described, can move us past limitation. I shared how my upbringing shaped my views of self-worth. And I also shared how my daughter's choices showed me the power of putting yourself first. And lastly, daily shifts matters. From small act of gratitude to intentional choices. We saw how mindset shift or mindset change can help you live in enough, like in Sarah's case, after years of instability. If this message resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be notified when I post a new video. Also, please comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. Sur ce, on se dit à la prochaine. Thanks for watching. See you soon.